Welcome back, one and all, to another episode of the Damage Report. In fact, a Friday episode. And so you're probably all expecting Brett Ehrlich, but no, he's gone. He's not here, okay? Move on. We got someone even better, don't worry. Jessica Burbank, how's it going?
I'm the captain now, taking over for Brett. We will be talking about Brett later, though.
There will be a Brett, not that particular Brett. He's stuffing himself with pasta and gelato as we speak. Well-earned vacation for him and his wife. He'll be back eventually. I think he's gone for a bit, and then he's gonna be training people for Nina Turner's upcoming show, which everyone get hyped for. It's starting October. He'll eventually be back, but that means that we've got this opportunity where other people get to join us on a Friday. It's a little bit more relaxed. Sometimes we take a nap in the middle of the show, and we throw away our garbage people of the week, which we will be doing. First time, I think, for you, Jessica, right?
It's my first garbage people.
Your first garbage people. And we'll give you the community garbage person of the week as well. Which, by the way, if you'd like to vote, there is still time. You can head over to the community tab of the YouTube channel and you can vote. We basically always end up with 41,000 votes. Let's see if we can hit 42. Be a part of the solution over on the YouTube channel. In any event, we've got a lot of news we're gonna be talking about. Not only news about dumb humans, but also, more importantly, news about animals. That will be coming up in just a little bit. We got Dark Brandon clowning members of the GOP. That's gonna be fun. A debate about old elected officials. Should they exist? Old graybeard, or should they be put out to pasture? We're gonna be talking about that in the aftermath. Conspiracy theories involving Starbucks and a whole lot more. So in advance of that, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button and sharing the stream, that'd be great so that people know we're live. And the algorithm has all of what it desperately needs. And then you can send us comments, tweets, super chats, and all that, and we'll respond as we go. But with all that said, Jessica, are you ready to start the show?
Let's get into it.
Okay, let's do it. As predicted, the DOJ is going to be appealing, apparently, the judge's order that stopped them from, at least temporarily, looking at all of the documents that they took from Mar-a-Lago, the documents that Donald Trump stole, and that would be putting forward a special master to lead the review of those documents, which have apparently already been reviewed. It's a weird tangled web of apparently gaps in logic and weird judicial explanations. It's a Trump judge who's making all this happen. So we're not too surprised by that. But apparently just today, federal prosecutors are saying they want their access to the classified material to be restored, saying that their ongoing criminal probe needs to determine, and this is where it gets interesting, if there are sensitive government papers that have not yet been found, which seems very plausible. He stole a lot of them, and it's taken multiple trips to Mar-a-Lago to get even the ones that they already have. And so I understand why they would be worried that there might be more outstanding, whether at Mar-a-Lago or at other Trump properties, perhaps. And so here is what the government is requesting be suspended right now. The judge's decision that both classified and unclassified documents should be reviewed by a special master, as well as her ruling that FBI agents and prosecutors may not access even the classified documents for their criminal probe until that review is completed. So that's what they're asking to suspend. They're not asking to suspend that the special master could be appointed to review personal documents and some other items seized by FBI agents back on August 8th. It's been exactly 1 month, actually. How exciting. And so, sure, if the special master wants to look at his dental records or his passport or whatever other stupid stuff they use as an excuse to get us to not worry about the far more important classified documents, then they're saying that's fine. Now, I alluded to the fact that there might be an appeal. There might not be an appeal. If in theory, this Trump appointed judge gives the DOJ what they're asking for here, then there would be no need for it. But if that doesn't happen, then we can get into when and how an appeal might happen. But Jessica, what do you think about this? How likely do you think it is that the judge grants these requests for suspension?
Super unlikely. Eileen Cannon. I'm gonna make a bunch of musical references today, but come on, Eileen. Cannon was appointed to the federal bench by Trump after he lost in 2020. This was when he was trying to, even more so than he was earlier in his presidency, build a coalition of people who will do whatever he needs them to do and who are loyal only to him and not loyal to the people. She has said that her reason for this is releasing this or allowing federal investigators to investigate this could cause Trump reputational harm, which is a terrible reason to not investigate a criminal objectively. But this is just another example of what's at stake when we allow someone to have as much power as Donald Trump did go completely unchecked. He was not governing on behalf of the people. And now there are people in power who are still defending him, trying to prevent him from committing crimes. And there's a lot at stake here because of what's in these classified documents. He could sell them to foreign leaders who want to hurt America. And the United States has not acted responsibly abroad. They don't like us for merited reasons. But at the end of the day, the American people are in danger by that happening. And the American people had no say in what the ruling class in America was doing to cause harm to other countries. And so we need those documents back. And she's preventing the justice process, and she's a judge.
Yeah, or at the very least trying to slow it down.
Yes.
As long as possible.
Right.
Maybe slow it down long enough that we'll get into the point of the 2024 cycle where Donald Trump will declare that he's running, and then, you can't investigate the guys running for office at this point. It's all very transparent. The reputational harm argument, as you said, that is honestly hilarious. People often say that the right wing doesn't get comedy, but that's pretty funny. First of all, the idea that he has any more reputation to be harmed is insane. But at the same time, and I guess this makes the joke very much on us, it's not gonna harm his reputation. Honestly, it does not matter what they find in those documents. Right wingers are gonna be perfectly fine with it. We did some of the polls yesterday. They don't care about any of this. If the P tape came out, it wouldn't hurt his reputation amongst right wingers. And so the argument makes no sense. But let's turn to the arguments of the DOJ. Why should these things be suspended? Well, they lay out some arguments. They say that allowing a special master to review the classified material would, quote, cause the most immediate and serious harms to the government and the public. They note, by the way, that the seized documents have already been moved to a secure facility, and the classified documents have been separated from the rest of the seized Trump papers. So again, remember, Donald Trump's legal filing having to do with this special master was super slow, it was belated. And so by the time it actually went through, most of this work has already been done at this point. It has been separated, it is secured. Whatever concerns Donald Trump is expressing that the special master being appointed would supposedly help with, they've already done all of that stuff. But they go on to say, by the way, well, in this case, the FBI Assistant Director Alan Kohler says that Cannon's prohibition of investigators' use of the seized classified materials could prevent them from understanding what may have happened to the significant number of empty folders found with classified markings. And I actually find that to be a very spicy tidbit of this new story for two reasons. One, reminder that we do need to figure that out. But much more importantly, ever since we heard about those empty folders, we've been trying to figure out what is the potential explanation for that. We played video of Alina Habba, the Trump lawyer, I believe yesterday, saying that maybe the documents are invisible. Maybe he never took the documents. Maybe he just took the folders, which that makes tons of sense. Or maybe they've already recovered the documents. Maybe the documents used to be in the folder. They were taken out of the folder, but they were still in Mar-a-Lago. And so the folders don't mean anything additionally because they've got the documents that go in there. But think about what we just saw from the FBI Assistant Director. They're still trying to figure out what happened to those documents, implying that potential explanation, which seems reasonable enough, that apparently is not true. It is not true that all of the documents are accounted for, but outside of the folders, because the FBI is still trying to figure out where they went. So that actually reveals, honestly, more information than we've gotten in several days at the very least. And so, look, again, you're under no obligation to trust the arguments of the DOJ or the FBI or whatever. You should approach them with a natural level of suspicion and skepticism. But in this case, I think their arguments make a little bit more sense than what the Trump team is saying, Jessica.
Absolutely, which is sad and not saying much because there are so many questions surrounding this. Why did it take so long for them to search Mar-a-Lago? That's a big question. What's the deal with the empty folders? We're not sure that all of the documents have been secured. Also, copy machines exist, so do cameras. He could have copies of all of these documents. And we really haven't heard much from the FBI or the DOJ that there's been anything done to prevent that from happening or investigate if there are copies there. He could very well today be posting them on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace to sell them. We have no idea what's going on with these classified documents. And so yeah, this judge delaying the process is worse, but what the FBI doing isn't their best work. Not that they do good work on a regular basis, but they could be handling this a lot more carefully.
Well, look, the only criticism I'm gonna make of what you said, Jessica, is that nobody uses Facebook Marketplace anymore. Trump is social media savvy. That's what you don't get about him. He's gonna put up a TikTok of him holding up classified documents about nuclear stuff and then pointing to different parts of it. And then he's gonna do his little Trump shuffle or whatever, and then point to something about France's nuclear defenses or something. And it's gonna go viral. Massive dumps of clicks. But anyway,
our new car on beat, pointing to them on the map.
While he plays a song where the artist eventually comes out and is like, dude, don't use my music. Honestly, I despise you. Don't use my song. Anyway, look, we're talking now about Trump, so why don't we get to his response to this? The fact that the DOJ might well be appealing the special master thing isn't really a surprise. And we'll know soon, by the way. Apparently, the Trump appointed judge, Eileen Cannon, has asked for Trump's lawyers to respond to the request by Monday. So we'll know very soon. But even before we get to that, if you want to know what Trump thinks about their potential appeal, he's not a fan. He truthed about it, saying, so now the FBI and Biden Department of Justice leakers are going to spend millions of dollars with lots of capitalized letters and vast amounts of time and energy, also capitalized, to appeal the order on the raid of Mar-a-Lago document hoax. Why is that in quotation marks? I don't understand. By a brilliant and courageous judge whose words of wisdom rang true throughout our nation. Jeez, that dude woke up feeling poetic. He's talking there about Eileen Cannon, saying instead of fighting the record-setting corruption and crime taking place right before our eyes. And he goes through a whole bunch of ridiculous conspiracies and grievances and all that stuff. But he goes on to say, and I thought this was exciting because I had been wondering earlier this week where some of their prior explanations as to why he had these documents or why the DOJ found them. He brings up one of the oldies saying, they leak, lie, plant fake evidence, allow the spying on my campaign, something, Pfizer raid, blah, blah, blah. So once again, we're back to they plant documents. They said initially, before we had any of the details out of the raid, that they were gonna plant documents. Then a whole bunch of leaks and affidavits and redacted blah, blah, blahs came out. We saw the pictures of the documents. He confirmed that he had them and that the only issue he had with the photo coming out was that they were on the floor. And now weeks later, hey, he's back to them being planted there. And I have no doubt that the right wing will gobble that argument up. It's nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but I'm sure they're gonna love it, Jessica.
The communication of Donald Trump is astounding. He fully understands the American public, which is really unfortunate for everybody else because so many people do not want to read about politics. They don't want to watch the news. They get home at the end of the day and they're very tired from working very hard to pay their bills. The last thing they want to do is look into what the DOJ investigation of Trump is, but he's very funny, he's entertaining, he's a leader, unfortunately, and they'll read these tweets and take his word for it and be like, yeah, what the government's up to is pretty crazy. People don't trust the government. They don't think it works for them. And most people are not aware of the fact that the government is bought and sold by corporations and run on behalf of corporations. And Donald Trump is complicit with that. But if he says, they're just after me because I wanted to drain the swamp, unfortunately, that's enough. And that connects with people. And it's scary that he is not president and he's still controlling the narrative in this way.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I take pretty much everything he says as fact. I mean, the dude was president. Come on, like you got to respect him. But anyway, I do want people to be ready for the next couple of steps of this. So based on what Eileen Cannon said, they have until Monday to respond. And I'm gonna guess, and this is a bold guess, that they're not going to give the DOJ what they want. And so there will be an appeal. I don't know exactly what the timeline for that will be, or when we'll get the special master. They say Friday there's gonna be lists submitted. I love, by the way, that the two different sides are gonna be submitting the lists, which means the Trump side is gonna be submitting a list of people they think will be the special master for really fast. Any guesses as to who that, like Rudy Giuliani could be on that list. Stephen Miller could be on that. Jeanine Pirro could be on that list. She could be sloshing Shiraz all over the documents in just a couple of weeks.
Terrifying, terrifying. Also, special master is such a weird name. Why do they call it special master? I don't like it.
Make us uncomfortable. That's why.
And next week's list for garbage people will just be all of the potential special masters.
I like it already. It might be my garbage person today, and I don't even know who they are. But here is the next step. So assuming they do appeal, assuming they need to, which they will, and assuming that they will, which they say they will, then it goes to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, and that's where it gets even more corrupt than with Eileen Cannon. So 6 of the 11 judges on that circuit court are Trump appointees. Only 3, I believe, would actually initially rule on the appeal. It is possible it could go through a certain legal process to all 11, but either way, it could end up being all 3 are Trump appointees. Now, former federal prosecutor in South Florida, David Weinstein, says that although 6 of the appeals court 11 active judges are Trump appointees, the 11th Circuit, quote, is a conservative set of judges that very often rules in favor of the government and have done so in the past. Oh, well, certainly the norms will save us then, the traditions. They won't flip flop to give Trump what he wants. Because if there's anything that's true of judges on the Court of Appeals level, they're not thinking about potentially getting put on the Supreme Court by Donald Trump if he gets to be president again, which they have a chance to potentially save his ability to run for president again, almost single-handedly. They definitely wouldn't be thinking about their careers going forward. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, what's going on in our justice system? The justice system has never worked for the people in the United States. This is not brand new. It is a problem that the people who end up becoming judges at this level are people who grew up in very comfortable families. They're not very connected with the problems the majority of the American people go through every single day. And so when they're appointed, you're absolutely right. All they care about is their careers. That's what it's about for them. It's about the prestige. It's about upholding power. And that's really what they do when they get into these courts. It's also unfortunate that at every level we are encountering a Trump majority. There's supposed to be some degree of checks and balances, even if the court system is wholly biased and serving, the people who are elites in the United States. It's a problem that, at every single level of the court, it's not like we're going to encounter, okay, well, we'll go to the appeal court. And at least at the appeal court, we're not encountering a Trump appointed judge. No, he's ensured that there are Trump appointed judges at every single level. And that's the court system we have now. And that's his lasting legacy. And we've seen the effects of it after he's out of office with how the Supreme Court is ruling. Immediately our rights are stripped away and he's not even in office right now. And there were a lot of Cassandras that were like, this is a huge issue. He's appointing so many judges and justices. And now we're really seeing the effects of it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm very glad that you're focusing on that. I mean, I think we're understandably focused on the fact that they've taken over the Supreme Court. They have this conservative supermajority, but below that, like one of the powers of controlling the judiciary is that you don't even necessarily need to take things to the Supreme Court. If you can kill things that you want at the lower levels, then that's amazing. And they have packed so many of these courts. Think about how many people's lives are going to be affected by whatever it is the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals does. Like important cases having to, Florida's obviously a major state. And so that's super powerful. Anyway, we're gonna go to our first break. I'm going to give you a topic of conversation though as we launch into it. Who would you like to see as the special master? In a couple of minutes, I'm gonna reveal who my troll pick would be, but you tell me in the comments and we'll be right back.
Not a single Republican, not a single one, House or Senate, voted for that legislation. We also passed once-in-a-generation investment in our nation's roads, highways, bridges, railroads, ports, airports, water systems, high-speed internet. We got a little help from Republicans, but not a lot, but enough to get it passed. But the truth is, there are a lot more Republicans taking credit for that bill than we actually voted for it. I see them out there, and now we're going to build this new bridge here. We're all for it. And by the way, this new road, and we're going to have an internet that's going to be all the way. I love them, man. They ain't got no shame. They don't have any shame.
Having fun. Look what Biden is doing there in one little video. He's touting the achievements that they were able to get past. I may quibble with some of the ways that they presented it, but he's talking about the things that they've done. He's pointing out the hypocrisy and having fun with it. And what he's pointing out is totally true. Republicans love to brag about getting things done that they tried as hard as they could to stop. And we're going to have receipts for you, specific examples of how ridiculous this can get in practice, as well as Marjorie Greene being an example of this. But Jessica, what do you think?
Yeah, before we get into the details about why what he said was good and effective, what are they feeding him? I mean, this plays like a stand-up. He even changed his voice and did like the Dave Chappelle when he does the white guy voice when he's impersonating Republicans. It is like Dark Brandon's doing stand-up. The only thing this video is missing is a pause with the laser eyes.
Exactly. Well, you can edit that in for the TikTok version of this, but yeah, I like it. And I was a bit worried that we would get 2 weeks of him doing well, but they seem to have learned a lesson. They seem to be continuing it. Now let's hope at the same time they continue actually doing the things that justify this fun, cocky braggadocio. But in any event, now let's get to the even more fun part, which is the actual Republicans who are doing what he's mocking, starting with Marjorie Greene.
This church, this is where people are bringing supplies and picking up supplies. This affects Somerville, Chattooga County. What we need you to know is if you have not turned in your damage assessment, those numbers are needed for FEMA. You again can go to my website, greene.house.gov. Greene has an E on the end, and it lists out all the resources, all the government agencies, every phone number you need. And if you're someone that you're trapped at home, you just don't have a car, you're not able to get a ride, call the 911 center here in Somerville, and they will route you out, and we'll make sure that supplies get brought to you.
Yes, so what Marjorie Greene is talking about there is for real. In Georgia, there is flooding. People need help. That's what the government is about, is when a disaster strikes, you're not just left to the chaos winds. There's some sort of support structure that she has tried to stop from being established. She voted against H.R. 5305, the Extending Government Funding and Delivering Emergency Assistance Act. And this is what they always do. Even in the most ridiculous, like, I understand they're not going to vote for, climate change legislation or whatever. They're not going to support student debt cancellation because they absolutely despise the working class. I get that they're not going to do that. But they routinely vote against disaster funding, even like that will benefit their state, but especially if it doesn't. I mean, how frequently have we had the government trying to put money towards, recovering after a hurricane or something? They vote against it. And then the second, what do you know? Nobody could have predicted it. Their state is hit by a natural disaster. Suddenly they come running to the federal government asking for money. Marjorie Greene should be doing what she's doing. For once, she's serving sort of the role of an elected official, telling people how they can get help, but not telling them that if it were up to her, that help would not be available.
Right. And plugging it on her website as well, her campaign website. Go to marjorietaylorgreene.com. Not explaining to people where those resources or money originally came from, but doing it for votes, saying, go to my website, this is coming from me. Republicans have been talking a lot, complaining about inflation. This is the big one. I talk about inflation a lot, so I'm going to focus on that. But they're always complaining about it on Fox News, about Biden has spent too much money, but they'll never mention the defense budgets they pass or the tax cuts for the rich. That adds a ton of money into our economy. And they support Powell raising rates, which, by the way, Powell was appointed by Trump and is still in office. That's going to strain the economy even further and increase unemployment, which is a huge issue. And the reason working people will relate to Republicans when they're upset about inflation is because the effect of inflation is people can't afford what they need. But if the solution is to just let Powell raise rates, the consequence of that is unemployment will increase, people will have less jobs, there will be more competition, and the wages will go down. So the problem remains that people can't get what they need to live. They can't afford housing or food or energy. And so Republicans are absolutely not doing anything about this because Powell admitted that it's in the hands of Congress and raising rates isn't what we need to do to resolve inflation because it's not a demand problem. The only people who can take action about current inflation and do something to address the supply side of this are Congress, but they're doing nothing but complaining and blaming the Biden administration. So it's amazing that now we have Dark Brandon calling them out on their hypocrisy here.
Yeah. Why don't we call out more of the hypocrisy They've got no shame, Dark Brandon says as he mocks Republicans for claiming credit for things they tried to stop. But this isn't a new thing, by the way. Republicans have been doing this for a long time. It's just way easier to identify it when it's happening on social media. But there's actually a website, GOP voted no, tookthedough.com, identifies a lot of examples of this. So Gary Palmer, Republican congressman, promoted almost $400 million in highway project funding provided by the infrastructure bill that, of course, he voted against. He called it a, quote, wasteful expansion of government control of our lives that I was totally enthusiastic part of. And you should vote for me again because I got that government control of your lives. Michelle Steele took credit for $8.3 million in funding to dredge Newport Harbor. She voted against it, of course. Ashley Hinson claimed she helped lead efforts to get game-changing investments for dam modernization. She called the bill, which she voted against, socialist and Washington gamesmanship at its worst. I don't know. I don't think that was the worst gamesmanship. I think the claiming credit for it after calling it gamesmanship is a little bit worse gamesmanship, actually. Pete Stauber said he was happy to announce airport funding after calling the bill, which he voted against, a destructive and irreversible path towards socialism. I guess some of the socialism isn't that bad, I suppose. Kate Granger called the bill that would eventually deliver over $400 million in flood control investment that she likes a liberal wish list of radical spending. I guess that part wasn't radical. Tony Gonzalez thought that the bill would make matters worse and hold our country back. And now he has that bill's back, actually, in promoting it. Rob Whitman highlighted $70 million in funding for the Port of Virginia. He voted no on it. He called the bill irresponsible and the Green New Deal in disguise. But wait, but now he likes it. Is that AOC in disguise? I'm confused, Jessica. I don't know, because they sure seem to like this stuff now that it's law.
This is so much more fun than me talking about what's going on with inflation. And this
They're both good.
More effective to reach people with the hypocrisy that's going on right now. But this is amazing. It's such a fun website. And how incredible is it that people are putting so much time and effort into highlighting what's going on in government right now? It's almost like when the government actually does things to benefit everyday working people, people will get invested in politics and partake in it more than usual. Amazing. Let that be a lesson to you.
Exactly, 100%. Yes. And these sorts of things are necessary, both the website and us talking about it. Like a significant portion of the country still thinks that they're working on the infrastructure bill. It's done. No, we passed it. We passed it like a month ago. But that stuff cannot filter through to 100% of the population. It just doesn't. First of all, 40% of the country watches Fox News, so they're never going to find out about it. And if they do, they'll think it's a commie plot. But the good parts the Republicans got are awesome. We are unfortunately running a little bit behind, so damn, I don't think we can do the polls. I think we're gonna have to go forward to the C block. Why don't we jump ahead to that, mix it up, and we'll see if we can get back to some of that at another point. You want to give me a heads up when we're ready to go? And I'll read this comment from Wesley, who says, I love everyone on TYT, but Jessica is my favorite. John is second, but not a close second. Thanks, Wesley. It's so needless. Is that Dark Brandon? I just got laser-eyed through the YouTube comments. Anyway, James Thompson sent in a super chat saying, I remember Trump saying anything is on the table. Does that mean he could sell our secrets to the highest bidder? I question whether that's what he's going for here, but it's breaking the law regardless. Hold on. Hal says, you guys need to switch places. The host is supposed to be on the left. That ain't right. That ain't right. Okay. With that, let's move ahead to the C block. Religious organizations in too many cases are allowed to get away with basically anything. And we have a tale of abuse of young girls that you're probably not going to believe. In fact, I want to start off with this video we have. There's a lot of great TikTok videos of girls who've been through this horrendous program we're going to describe, talking about their experience. Here's a bit of one of those.
Probably the most important step is number 1. Pick them up in the middle of the night and then drop them off in the middle of nowhere where they know nobody. This will cause them to feel confused, disorientated, and shocked. You can work off of that. Once you have them disoriented, remind them that they chose to come here. Tell them that this is what God wanted, that everything happens for a reason, and God is the reason you're there. Take away their most basic comforts, such as privacy or a bed.
So that is Maggie Higgins, and there's a lot more to it about how they don't allow the girls to actually talk to each other. But let's talk about what this program is, because we're getting some of these insider details from individuals, but it's important that people understand what we're talking about. This is apparently a program ostensibly designed for girls who are depressed, drinking, skipping school, or fighting with their families. It's the Trinity Teen Solutions. Trinity Teen Solutions. How could it possibly go wrong? Anyway, what they want parents to do is pay $6,000 a month to send their girls to a Christian therapeutic program at a working ranch in a remote area of Wyoming, which is definitely an awesome premise for a movie, not necessarily good for actually dealing with problems of young people. And so what the girls encountered once they got there, according to 22 different women who talked to NBC News, this is from 2007 to 2020. It's been operating without restriction for years and years, was, quote, a nightmare of hard labor and humiliating punishments that left some injured and others with PTSD. You can see a little shot here of one of the few photos available of it. But they say, these women, they described injuries to their hands, legs, and feet, including cuts, frostbite, torn ligaments in one case, which required surgery, from hauling heavy metal pipes to irrigate fields and carrying bales of hay they said weighed over 50 pounds. Girls built barbed wire fences, dragged carcasses of dead animals into a pile, and were driven around the country to clean churches and recreation centers. If they stepped out of line during all this forced manual labor, they were forced to run up and down a small mountain, dodging rattlesnakes, given only a can of olives and beans for a meal. They were called stubborn, and some were tied to a goat with a leash for days at a time. You know, normal biblical stuff. Anyway, we got more details, Jessica, but the basic idea is for these girls who have made the significant error of being depressed, they have much more to be depressed about as they are mocked and bullied and, in some cases, branded while their parents pay thousands of dollars for the privilege.
Oh, you're not doing so well? Have you tried hard physical labor? I'm sorry, what? This is not a solution. They weren't doing well. They needed help. And instead, they were sent to a camp where religion is preached and they're forced to do labor. And this is not new. Using religion to push people to do hard physical labors, a common theme in our country. There's this old labor song called The Preacher and the Slave. I said I was going to do a bunch of musical references. Here they are. And it goes, work all day, sleep on hay. You'll get by in the sky when you die. This promise of like salvation, and you'll go to heaven, and you'll meet God. And so it's worth it to live a very hard life right now and struggle, but just pray and it'll all be good when you're gone, right? This is manipulation to get people to do hard physical labor. Also, in the United States, slavery is illegal, except as punishment for a crime, as the 13th Amendment says. Is there crime here that they were depressed, struggling with their mental health? They should be suing for their constitutional rights.
Yeah. Well, a number of women have tried to get an investigation going. Apparently, back in 2019, at least a dozen women reported allegations of abuse. The prosecuting attorney, Brian Skork, said the case remains under investigation 3 years later. 7 women who filed reports say they haven't been contacted by prosecutors in 2 years. And throughout all of this, they remain open for business as they have been for many years. And if they are indeed making $6,000 a month from each individual family, then they are making a massive amount of money over years and years and years. And suspiciously, the prosecutors don't want to look into it. That seems like that might be something to look into, actually. Anyway, if you want more information about this, NBC News has a great write-up, and you can search Trinity Teen Solutions on TikTok for personal accounts of a number of the girls who've actually been through this horrendous program. With that, we do have to take our second break. When we come back, though, lots more news to get to. Don't go anywhere. There are people in the chat saying that program would be great for Trump. Obviously, I don't want that abuse on anybody, but yeah, I think that if you were handed like $400 million as a kid, I don't know, some sort of discipline might not hurt. Anyway, give you a little taste of the real world, but probably not that program. Anyway, With that said, why don't we get into some really serious stuff here? A former paratrooper in the Army was given top secret security clearance, despite the fact that there is apparently, based on his social media activity, clear documented ties to white supremacist organizations and, in fact, Nazi-specific ideology. But that didn't stop the security clearance. This is Killian Ryan we're talking about, arrested on the 26th of August, charged with making a false statement on his Army application for a secret security clearance. It was discharged the same day for multiple drunk driving violations. So those are the things they actually got him on, to be clear. Criminal investigation uncovered violent and racist remarks on multiple social media accounts, which had apparently eluded the agency, which was looking into him for his Army credentials. So we're not going to go through all of the things that he has said or was alleged to say, but let's focus on one that I think really sums it up. On one of his accounts, Ryan allegedly posted, "I serve for combat experience, so I'm more proficient in killing N-words." He apparently also used Nazi Ace 1488 as one of his social media accounts. 1488 is, of course, numbers that are associated with Nazi ideology. Just in case Nazi Ace didn't really sell it, he wants to make sure that you get the numbers in there too. But look, what he is saying, I'm sure, was what he actually wanted that training for some sort of hypothetical future race war, so that he could kill non-white people. And that, when we talk about the infiltration of police departments as well as the military, especially the special forces, apparently based on some good reporting, this is what we're talking about. These are people who are going to infiltrate that group to learn what they need to do to commit terror attacks and other sorts of domestic extremism, Jessica. Now, this guy they eventually caught, but if he hadn't been a drunk driver, would they have actually caught him? Would they have found this other stuff? Because they apparently didn't look too closely.
It's such an interesting story. It really highlights this narrative we have of the government is so far left. Biden's a socialist. Biden's a commie. The government controls the economy and has way too much power. No, we have to say that corporations have the power in the United States. The government has been refusing to regulate corporations for their exploitation of labor and their unrestrained profits for quite some time. If we have such a far left government, why is it the case that we're always finding Nazis and fascists and racists in the police and in the military? But you never really hear stories about them finding, I don't know, socialists in the military, people with extreme views in the other direction. Mm-hmm. I don't know, just a thought experiment for everybody.
Yeah, there's not a lot of people who are like infiltrating the special forces so that they can learn what they need to overthrow the government to put the Green New Deal into place. That's not really how it works out. It's not like why didn't you find those inflation TikToks that she had put up before she was. But honestly, they should be looking for more of this. And these people are enthusiastic about bragging about how xenophobic and racist and misogynistic and homophobic they are. So it shouldn't be that hard to find. But if they do start a program of looking into this, you don't think that Tucker Carlson is going to do entire monologues about how this is censorship and this is the wokening of the military and all that? He doesn't care at all that this guy was in there. He's not going to cover it. This isn't an example of racism. They're just moving on past this. You can find this guy. But by the way, how many the Coast Guard, the potential terrorists that they found? You can find tons of these. It will never get through to them because they don't want it to be discussed. They're in favor of people like this, and they don't want the spotlight being put on them. By the way, at least 95 people charged in the January 6th insurrection served in the U.S. military. This is not one bad apple. This is literally 100 bad apples in one particular extremist attack.
Yeah.
Anyway, with that said, unless you have a quick final thought.
Super last thing. In Germany, they've experienced the consequences of letting fascism rise, and now they take it very seriously. When they find people in their police department and in their military that have extreme views, that are sympathetic to Nazis, they have disbanded entire police departments because of one group chat. And I really think we need to take the rise of fascism as seriously as they do.
Yeah. And that's what would be necessary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, that's a bit of a downer story. We want to end with a bit of fun. So whenever you're ready, let's jump into this next video. Sploot. Oh, I hope the ground is cool. That is spooting, and it's serious business, but not necessarily something that you need to be worried about. If you see a squirrel or some other animal spooting, wildlife centers in San Francisco have been getting calls from people saying that they've seen squirrels. And why don't we jump to this photo? Spooting all over the place. They're not trying to listen for trains approaching. It's not that they just can't even. It's apparently a thing that has to do with keeping cool. But apparently they feel like they need to get out in front of this, not just in San Francisco. The New York City Parks Twitter account put out a photo of a squirrel spooting as well. In the park, you can see him getting some of that nice cool ground. Anyway, it's a reaction to extreme heat. And so if you've got a fur coat and you're stuck in 107-degree weather, you don't have a lot of options to cool down. If you're a bear, you can get in a pool, as we talked about earlier this week. For squirrels and other mammals, splooting is one of the things that they can do. They stretch themselves out on the ground, remain completely motionless. Apparently, they get as much of their surface area on the ground as possible because it's cooler. It's also called heat dumping, but that's gross, so we're not going to call it that anymore. They're not the only ones that do it. You, in fact, might have a dog that's done it. I think this is a corgi, perhaps. You can see splooting as well. If we jump to that photo. Nice cool ground. Here's a marmot who is splooting so thoroughly that it doesn't even look like a creature anymore. It just looks like a fur coat that someone threw over a wooden bench or something. But anyway, it's not something that you need to freak out about, specifically for the animal. The animal's probably going to be okay. What you should freak out about is the fact that splooting is going to become more common because extreme heat is becoming more common as well, Jessica. That's the thing that I'm worried about, that it's going to get to 107 and then 109 and 111, and eventually you can't sploot hard enough to deal with the heating earth.
Yeah, it can be difficult to imagine what the world will be like in 10 years, but imagine a bunch of animals just laid out dying of extreme heat. And if the animals are hot, unhoused people are hot as well. Homeless people die of heat exhaustion in this extreme heat. It's a really bad situation already. In Los Angeles, there have been extreme temperatures. I wasn't here for it. I was in New York. But John, I'm sure you can attest to how hot it's been over the past few days. Yep. Like, if the animals are not doing well, neither are the people who don't have housing. And we're letting them die in the streets. And it's the same problem in the extreme cold in the winter where people are freezing to death. And governments were state governments had federal funds that they were just sitting on, hundreds of millions of dollars, while people are freezing in the streets. And it's very sad to see the animals. But it's affecting people too.
Yeah, 100%. And then you see news like, them cutting down trees and things like that. This is going to get worse. We need policies that take this into account, not just policies to stop further heating or the rate of further heating, but to deal with the issues that come from heating. And that's issues across things like infrastructure, but also humanity and animals. We need to be on the lookout for these things. Anyway, it can be a little bit cute, I guess, on social media, but it does have some serious implications, so bear it in mind. I recently came across a conspiracy theory involving Starbucks that has me a little bit worried, actually. Ray Brown spread this. It says, we're going cashless, you can see in this photo of a Starbucks sign. From the 1st of October, 2022, we will only be accepting card, contactless, and Starbucks rewards payments. So he's not worried about that. He doesn't buy overpriced burnt coffee, which is the part of this story where I agree with him. I think their coffee does taste burnt. I don't understand why it's so popular. But the thing about the cashless payment isn't just that might be inconvenient. No, they think it goes way beyond that. Some users are arguing on social media that the announcement was linked to the book of Revelation in the Christian Bible, which claims that the mark of the beast system will force the world into a cashless society. Yes, apparently the presence of cash is very important. Jesus, as we all know, was a big fan of cash. Doesn't like cards, really. He wants you to have coins and bills. Anyway, they say Starbucks blazing the trail towards a cashless mark of the beast society. They don't care about their customers, but they do care about pushing a dishonest and unethical agenda. There are plenty of coffee shops around. Time to put them out of business. One guy says, clog up their stores and drive-thrus, place an order, and then walk away or drive through when they won't accept your cash. I've done it a few times at McDonald's. I don't know. Is McDonald's cashless? I don't know. But this guy apparently has so much time that he can just sit in a drive-through to not get food. I don't understand it. Now, look, obviously, Starbucks is not trying to begin the mark of the beast or whatever. But what's funny about this conspiracy theory is that they're sort of onto something. Yes, Starbucks does just care about money. First of all, they're not going cashless. This is like one store in the UK. They didn't think about this literally at all. It's honestly not happening. But going cashless, there are places that have decided to do that, and that is actually a problem for many people. Not everyone has a credit card or a debit card. There are many people who are unbanked. In fact, millions and millions of Americans, and this effectively pushes them out of that section of the economy when businesses go to cashless. And also, like they're focusing, Jessica, on this unethical business practices of Starbucks, but they're focusing on like conspiratorial Bible stuff. Is there anything legitimate, unethical going on at Starbucks that you think maybe they could spend their time on if that's what they're going to be worried about?
Well, John, I'm pretty sure that the old religious texts, when they wrote that they needed, a cashless society, the prophecy foretold Apple Pay. They knew this was going to happen. And we need fintech for Jesus, actually. More financial technology for Jesus. No, of course, Jesus doesn't want people purchasing products and coffee to be less accessible for the common man. Many people can't get access to credit cards. They don't have iPhones for the Apple contactless pay. This is oppression of working and poor people who only can use cash. So no fintech for Jesus.
No, not at all. And again, Starbucks is not going cashless, to be clear. It's like one store and it's not even in the US. But anyway, I wanted to remind people that if you are going to spend your time protesting Starbucks or whatever, don't make it about the Bible or Revelation. Make it about the fact that Howard Schultz is continuing to go around bad-mouthing the amazing drive to unionization happening at Starbucks. I don't have the video for you, but on More Perfect Union's Twitter page, they have him quoted as saying that the union drive is, quote, not going to be something that is going to significantly change the course of history at Starbucks, which has this very weird sort of manifest destiny vibe to it. Like the path of justice is in one direction. No, like, dude, it's a corporation. Many of your stores are unionizing. I expect that that's probably going to spread. Maybe you could actually like get aboard and like be a champion for this. I know that's not going to happen. By the way, recently, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as well as Kirsten Gillibrand, they joined different local Democratic leaders in condemning Starbucks recently firing 2 union leaders in New York State. That's something to potentially protest around. If you want to focus on unethical business practices, they're like wiping out people's livelihood, shutting down stores because of unionization. That is the true problem, even if it was not foretold in the book of Revelation. Any final thoughts?
Can't believe Howard Schultz. I was outside of your penthouse, Howard Schultz, on Monday, and I was talking to your workers, and let me tell you, you should be afraid. They will be changing the course of history. There were 500 people in the streets of New York City demanding better working conditions. And I have to say, Howard Schultz union busting is disgusting. And people like Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton wanted Howard Schultz to be her labor secretary, one of the biggest union busters in the country. And so we really need to remember, why people might not be covering what's going on with labor in the country, why Howard Schultz might be able to doubt that this is history making. And it's because many people in power are terrified of a popular movement of workers.
100%. Yeah, it's awesome that you were able to be there and go right outside. Did the house look nice? I'm assuming the penthouse looked nice. What do you think?
Yeah, it was really high up. We're on the street, so
yeah,
we weren't allowed in.
Oh well. With that said, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for the first hour of our show, though. So if you're listening on the podcast or on one of the linear platforms, thank you, as always, for being here. But the aftermath is approaching. We got a lot more to talk about, including a proposed maximum age limit for elected officials. Jessica will be back, so don't go anywhere. Michael Kopp says Jessica's inflation TikTok is perfect. If you love inflation so much, why don't you marry it, Jessica? Okay, you're just always talking about inflation. But anyway, everybody go check out that inflation TikTok of Jessica's. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Adarola. I'll see you soon.